"You dare look at me?" she said. I smiled and replied, "Only because you're beautiful." The council chamber was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Towering walls stretched upward in impossible angles, glowing with colors that seemed alive, shifting from violet to deep green as if breathing. Alien delegates filled the room, their bodies unlike anything on Earth, from tall crystalline figures to small, multi-limbed beings, all staring down at the human envoy with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Humanity's first independent diplomat, Elias Kane, stood at the center, a small figure among giants, yet his posture was straight, his gaze calm, and his expression smiling. The air hummed with tension. The high-ranking enforcer of the council, a being known only as Sarathis, approached him. Her presence was immediate and oppressive. She was taller than most of the other delegates, her skin shimmering like polished metal, and her eyes, two deep pools of black, seemed to pierce into the soul. Even the bravest delegates had avoided direct eye contact with her, knowing that it was considered an insult, a challenge, and sometimes a declaration of war. And yet Elias did not flinch. He met her gaze directly with nothing but a calm smile. "You dare look at me?" Her voice was sharp, reverberating across the chamber. It was more than words, it was a test, a challenge to every instinct in him to bow, to avert his eyes, to show submission. Aliens whispered among themselves, shocked. The air felt electric, almost dangerous. Elias inclined his head slightly. "I dare," he said softly, and then to everyone's surprise he added, "Because you are beautiful." A ripple of confusion swept through the room. Some delegates gasped audibly. Others froze, unsure whether to laugh, shout, or attack. Sarathis paused, her expression unreadable. She had never heard words like these before, words that were neither fear nor arrogance, but something else entirely. The enforcer tilted her head, curious and cautious at the same time. She had met many diplomats, and none had survived this long under her scrutiny without crumbling. You insult me," she said finally, her voice low, controlled, but with a hint of disbelief. "Do you not fear me? Do you not recognize my authority?" Elias smiled again, this time with more warmth. "I recognize your authority," he said, "and I do not fear it. Fear is not always necessary to respect power. Sometimes understanding it, and the one who wields it, is enough." The chamber was silent, the kind of silence that pressed on the chest. Aliens had been taught that humans were primitive, weak, and emotional. Diplomats were supposed to show fear, submission, or clever flattery. None were supposed to meet Sarathis' gaze like equals. And yet here was Elias Kane, standing in the center of the council chamber, unshaken, smiling as though he were simply greeting an old friend. Sarathis stepped closer. Her movements were smooth, predatory, and precise. "You think words alone can protect you?" she asked. "Do you understand the consequences of defying me?" Elias looked around the chamber, taking in the faces of the delegates, the subtle signs of panic and disbelief. Then he turned back to her. "I do," he said simply. "But I also understand that no amount of fear can change who I am or what humanity stands for. We survive by courage, not by bowing to intimidation." Some of the smaller delegates shifted nervously. They had never seen a human speak with such confidence, let alone address Sarathis without trembling. The whispers began to grow louder. "He is foolish. He will die. How can a species so weak stand against the enforcer?" But Elias did not hear them. His mind was focused on the present, on Sarathis, on the truth of what he was saying. Sarathis studied him closely. She was trained to read expressions, detect lies, and sense weakness. But with Elias, she found something unfamiliar. Not arrogance, not ignorance, not submission, but an unwavering calm that felt human. Her species had always relied on dominance to maintain order. Fear had been a tool, power a weapon, but this human seemed to wield neither. He smiled at her, and it unsettled her in ways she could not articulate. "You speak boldly for one so small," she said finally. "And yet your words carry weight. Why do you smile?" Elias tilted his head, his smile softening. "Because it is easier to face power with a calm heart than with fear. And because, as I said, you are beautiful, not just in appearance but in the strength you carry. It is rare to see such strength, and I respect it." The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Aliens were not used to compliments, especially not from those they considered weak. Compliments were tools for manipulation or lies or foolish flattery, but Elias' words had none of these qualities. They were simple, honest, and disarming. Even Sarathis felt a strange flicker of something she had never felt before, curiosity. She had never met a human who spoke to her like this, with neither fear nor deceit, and it unnerved her. The head of the council, a massive crystalline being known as Vorath, stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "This is the first session of Earth's diplomatic trial. Your courage is noted, human, but words alone will not grant you favor. You will face tests designed to challenge your species' limits. We will see if humanity can survive among us." Elias nodded. "I understand," he said. "We are ready." The first test was announced. A holographic simulation appeared, showing a catastrophic event. A planet on the verge of destruction, its surface crumbling under immense tectonic activity, oceans boiling, storms tearing across continents. Delegates whispered that humans would panic, that they would fail to make rational decisions under such pressure. But Elias' mind was clear. He had prepared for this. He had trained for every conceivable disaster, studied countless simulations, and learned the strength of human adaptability. He stepped forward into the simulation chamber. The room transformed, the walls disappearing, replaced by the blazing surface of the simulated planet. The heat was intense, the wind nearly suffocating. Many species would have faltered, their senses overwhelmed. But Elias moved with calm precision, scanning the environment, assessing risks, and formulating solutions. The human's survival strategy was not based on raw strength, it was based on observation, adaptation, and courage in the face of fear. Sarathis observed from a distance, her eyes narrowing. "This human, he does not behave as expected," she murmured. "There is no panic, no begging. No submission, only resolve." She tilted her head, fascinated despite herself. Every step he took in the simulation was deliberate, thoughtful, and courageous. His actions reflected a species that had endured countless calamities without surrendering to despair. And in that realization, Sarathis felt an unfamiliar respect, though she would never admit it aloud. The simulation escalated. Volcanic eruptions shook the ground, lightning crackled across the sky, and massive waves threatened to sweep away everything in sight. Aliens in the gallery winced, expecting the human to falter at any moment. Yet Elias continued. He coordinated rescue protocols for the simulated population, diverted destructive forces where possible, and maintained composure as the environment tore itself apart. Each action demonstrated not only intelligence but empathy, a trait the Council had underestimated in humans. Finally, the simulation ended. Silence filled the chamber. The delegates stared at the human, stunned by his performance. Sarathis' eyes met his once again. For the first time, she allowed herself a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Elias returned her gaze with the same calm smile, unshaken by the intense scrutiny. He had faced fear, chaos, and destruction, and he had not only survived but thrived. And in doing so, he had shown the Council that humanity's strength was not in dominating others, but in standing firm together and without fear. Vorath's voice echoed through the chamber. "Humanity has endured its first trial, not with weapons but with courage. The Council takes note." Elias stepped back, still smiling, still calm. Around him, whispers began to shift from derision to curiosity. Perhaps humans were not as weak as the galaxy had believed. Perhaps there was more to this species than anyone had anticipated. And in the corner, Sarathis watched, her expression unreadable, yet something had changed. The human had dared to look at her, dared to smile, and dared to see her as more than a threat. And that simple act, the recognition of beauty and strength without fear, had already begun to alter the balance of perception in the galaxy. After the first trial, the Council chamber seemed quieter, almost tense. Aliens moved carefully, their usual arrogance replaced by curiosity. They whispered among themselves, casting cautious glances at Elias Kane. Humans were supposed to be weak, emotional, and unpredictable. Yet this one had faced the Council's most feared enforcer without fear, and he had survived a simulation meant to crush him mentally. The murmur of disbelief filled the room like a low hum, and Sarathis, standing silently at the edge of the chamber, could not ignore it. The Council decided that humanity would face another test. This time, it was not a simulation, but a challenge of diplomacy, strategy, and endurance. Multiple alien races would put humanity in situations designed to expose weaknesses, tests of logic, communication, patience, and adaptability. Delegates believed that humans would fail at the first sign of pressure. Elias, however, saw opportunity. He understood that humans were small in size but capable of large ideas and great endurance. Where other species relied on instinct, humanity relied on innovation and cooperation. The first of these tests was a complex negotiation with the Trelvans, a species known for their sharp minds and short tempers. Their skin shimmered with patterns that reflected emotion, changing color with each feeling, each thought. To the untrained eye, it was beautiful, but to those who knew the Trelvans' reputation, it was intimidating. They were quick to anger, even quicker to dismiss any species they considered inferior. Humanity was considered at the bottom of their list. Elias entered the negotiation chamber, where 3 Trelvans waited, their expressions unreadable. Their skin pulsed with deep green, indicating suspicion and mild irritation. One of them, taller than the others, leaned forward and spoke in a tone meant to belittle. "Human," the Trelvan said, its voice layered and melodic yet sharp, "you are here to speak for your entire species. Do you understand the magnitude of your task?" Elias nodded calmly. "I do," he replied, "and I also understand that words can build bridges or walls. I hope to build a bridge." The Trelvans looked at one another, their color shifting rapidly. Green to red to violet, signals of confusion, curiosity, and hidden aggression. "You are bold," the tallest one said. "Many would tremble before us, you do not." "Why?" Elias smiled. "Because I know fear is a choice. Respect is not born from fear, and wisdom is not proven by domination. My species has learned that courage and cooperation achieve more than intimidation." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We have survived countless disasters, wars, and near-extinction events because we adapt, not because we dominate." The Trelvans remained silent for a long moment. Their shifting patterns slowed, a sign they were processing his words. Then the tallest leaned back, his expression still guarded. "Perhaps humans are different. Perhaps that is why you survived where others failed. But words are not enough. You must prove your point." The test began. Each human and alien delegate was given a hypothetical planetary crisis. Alliances had to be formed, resources allocated, and conflicts resolved. Every decision was timed, and every misstep could result in the simulation showing total collapse, complete failure, or even virtual death of the species under their care. The room hummed with energy, tension building as time ticked down. Elias studied the scenario carefully. A planet teetered on the brink of civil war, with multiple factions threatening to destroy one another. Resources were scarce, climates were failing, and trust was minimal. Aliens quickly began issuing commands, each trying to assert dominance over the situation. But Elias paused. He listened first, understanding the factions, assessing risks, and identifying common ground. He knew that humans excelled in negotiation not by force, but by finding shared interests, appealing to logic and empathy rather than intimidation. The first alien delegate tried to corner him, using an aggressive approach meant to trap humanity into failure. "If you side with one faction, the others will collapse. If you remain neutral, all will perish. You must choose quickly or your species fails." Elias did not flinch. Instead, he asked questions, analyzed data, and proposed compromises. He suggested shared governance, resource exchange programs, and neutral enforcement units, concepts the aliens had never considered. They were used to rigid hierarchies, not flexible cooperation. The Trelvans watched closely, their color shifting from suspicion to tentative curiosity. Slowly, they began to see the merit in his approach. Other delegates grumbled quietly. They expected human panic, rash decisions, or manipulation. What they saw instead was logic, foresight, and the patience to wait until the best solution became clear. The aliens began to realize that humans had a kind of strength that did not resemble their own, a strength born of endurance, adaptability, and empathy. Meanwhile, Sarathas observed from the side, her eyes never leaving Elias. She had trained to detect weakness, deception, and fear, yet she found none. He did not dominate through intimidation, yet he commanded attention. He did not manipulate, yet he influenced outcomes. And despite everything, he maintained a quiet smile, calm and unshakable. She found herself wondering, what kind of species could produce a being like this? Hours passed in the simulation. Tensions rose, conflicts threatened, and mistakes were made. But each time a crisis arose, Elias adjusted. He communicated clearly, anticipated challenges, and maintained composure even when the scenario became chaotic. Slowly, the simulation stabilized. Factions agreed to cooperation, resources were allocated fairly, and the planet began to recover within the virtual environment. Aliens who had expected human failure now stared in disbelief. Elias had not only survived the test, he had excelled. At the end of the trial, the Trelvans approached him, their expressions softened and patterns calmer. "Human," the tallest one said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar respect, "your species is remarkable. You do not follow the expected rules of power, yet you achieve results beyond what many of us could imagine." Elias inclined his head. "Thank you. We have learned that strength is not always measured by fear or aggression, but by understanding, endurance, and collaboration." Sarathis stepped forward then, moving past the delegates. Her presence alone drew attention. "You speak of endurance and understanding," she said, her voice controlled but curious. "Yet you are young, untested in the galaxy beyond simulations. How do you know humanity can survive where others fail?" Elias met her gaze directly. "Because we have survived worse than these simulations," he replied calmly. "We have endured natural disasters, wars, famine, and disease that would have destroyed other species. We have adapted, learned, and grown stronger because of it, and we continue to do so. That is humanity's nature." Sarathis tilted her head, considering him. She could feel the truth in his words, though she would never admit it to her council. There was something different about humans, something that could not be measured by brute strength or fear tactics. They had a resilience she could sense, a quiet power that demanded respect even when unspoken. And for the first time, she felt a flicker of doubt about her own assumptions. The council reconvened after the trial. Aliens debated the results, some praising humanity's ingenuity, others dismissing it as luck. Vorath, the head of the council, spoke finally. "Humanity has demonstrated qualities that defy our expectations. Your species has shown patience, logic, and empathy under pressure. While some may doubt, your performance cannot be ignored." Elias stepped forward, his posture calm, his smile unwavering. He did not boast, he did not demand recognition. He simply acknowledged the council with respect and quiet confidence. The chamber, once tense with judgment, now felt a different energy. Aliens who had expected to dominate humans began to see them in a new light, not as weak, emotional creatures, but as adaptable, resilient, and capable of facing challenges without fear. Sarathis lingered behind, watching him closely. "You are different," she murmured, almost to herself. "I do not understand your kind, yet I cannot deny its strength." She remembered the first moment she had confronted him, the boldness of his gaze, the simplicity of his compliment. That moment, small as it seemed, had revealed the core of humanity's power: courage, empathy, and the ability to remain unshaken even in the face of overwhelming pressure. The human envoy had done more than survive the trial. He had begun to shift perceptions, challenge assumptions, and demonstrate that strength came in many forms, not only through fear or force, but through endurance, adaptability, and understanding. The other delegates began to whisper once more, but this time their words were different. "Perhaps they are stronger than we thought. Perhaps humanity is worth more than we imagined." Elias Kane turned toward the exit, his mission only beginning. He knew the trials would grow harder, that the council would continue to test humanity in ways designed to break them. But he also knew that each trial, each challenge, was an opportunity to demonstrate what made humans extraordinary. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting despite it. Strength was not domination, it was endurance. And humanity had survived countless trials on Earth, learning that cooperation, understanding, and empathy could accomplish what brute force could not. As he left the chamber, Sarathis's gaze followed him. She could not yet admit it aloud, but a seed of respect had been planted. Humans were not weak. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and unyielding in ways no alien had anticipated. And that realization, she knew, would make all the difference in the trials yet to come. The third trial was unlike anything Elias Kane had faced before. It was not a simulation of natural disasters, nor a negotiation between alien factions. This time, the council sought to test the human mind itself. The chamber transformed into an endless void, stretching beyond comprehension. Stars flickered in the distance, and colossal structures hovered in the darkness, their purpose unknown. The human envoy stood alone, surrounded by illusions designed to confuse, frighten, and disorient him. Every step he took echoed in the void, and whispers filled the air, alien voices, human memories, fears, and doubts. The council's intention was clear: push humanity to its breaking point. Many species had failed this test before. They panicked, froze, or became violent when confronted with the unknown. The trial was psychological, not physical. It sought to shatter the mind, revealing weaknesses that could be exploited in future interactions with the Council. Elias could feel the weight of the Council's gaze, even though he was alone. Sarathis observed from afar, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. She had seen confidence before, but this was different. Could a human survive an ordeal designed to strip away hope and clarity? At first, the void seemed endless. Paths twisted and turned, leading to nowhere. Structures appeared, impossible in shape, shifting with every glance. Elias felt a flicker of fear, a natural human response, but he did not allow it to take control. Instead, he grounded himself in memory. He thought of Earth, forests swaying in the wind, oceans stretching to the horizon, mountains standing tall despite centuries of storms. He thought of humanity's history, how humans had survived wars, disease, and natural disasters. That memory reminded him that fear was temporary, but endurance was permanent. The illusions began to intensify. Shadows of humans in peril appeared before him, friends trapped in crumbling cities, families struggling against impossible odds. Alien voices whispered accusations. You are weak. You are small. You do not belong here. The chamber seemed to close in around him, the void pressing like a tangible weight. But Elias remembered a lesson humanity had learned long ago. Strength was not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it. He took a deep breath and focused. He spoke aloud, though no one could hear him but himself. I will not break. I will endure. Humanity survives not by fleeing, but by facing the storm. With each word, the void seemed to pulse, testing his resolve, yet his calmness was like a beacon. The illusions wavered, as if sensing that their target was not faltering. Elias moved forward, not blindly, but with intent, observing each illusion, learning from it, understanding it. He realized that the trial was not meant to be overcome by force, but by patience, adaptability, and insight. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had little meaning in the void. The void conjured creatures of nightmare, vast and alien, with multiple limbs and eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. They lunged at him, shapes shifting faster than perception. Many delegates had panicked at this point, their minds overwhelmed. Elias did not fight with weapons, nor did he attempt to destroy them. Instead, he studied their behavior, predicting movement, anticipating attacks, and finding ways to avoid harm. He used his understanding of patterns, learned from watching humans interact with nature, technology, and one another to navigate the chaos. Then came the voice, deep and commanding, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Why do you persist, human? You are alone. You are weak. Surrender. Elias' heart beat faster, but he smiled. I persist because endurance is stronger than surrender, he replied calmly. I persist because fear is not the measure of my species. We adapt, we survive, we endure. The void shifted again, now presenting a mirror. In it, Elias saw himself as countless humans had been, a fragile, small creature in a vast galaxy, subject to forces beyond control. The reflection whispered his doubts, his fears, his failures. You are nothing. You cannot succeed. You will fail. Many would have collapsed at the mirror's reflection, letting despair take hold. Elias stared back. I am more than this reflection, he said steadily. I am humanity, and humanity survives even when hope seems impossible. The whispers tried to confuse him, presenting impossible choices. Save one planet or let another perish, betray an ally or let your people suffer, abandon yourself to safety or protect others at personal cost. Elias analyzed each scenario, understanding that the trial was not about choosing the perfect outcome, but about demonstrating reason, morality, and resilience. He made decisions based on principle, empathy, and strategic thinking. Even when choices seemed impossible, he acted with integrity, guided by the lessons humanity had learned over millennia. At one point, the void intensified, presenting Elias with the greatest fear he had ever experienced. He saw Earth itself being destroyed, oceans boiling, cities collapsing, and countless humans perishing. The visions were vivid, almost real. The weight of loss pressed on him, and for a moment he felt the sting of fear and sorrow. But then he remembered something essential. Humans survived because they did not act alone. Humanity's strength came from unity, cooperation, and resilience. Though the vision was bleak, it was not inevitable. Actions, courage, and perseverance could change the outcome. He reached out mentally, focusing on hope rather than despair. He imagined humanity standing together, rebuilding, overcoming, surviving against all odds. He imagined himself continuing his mission, not just for Earth, but for the recognition of humans across the galaxy. As he focused, the void seemed to respond. The shadows, nightmares, and whispers began to fade. The impossible creatures paused, as if acknowledging his resolve. Even the mirror's reflection softened, its whispers quieting. After what felt like an eternity, the void began to dissolve. Stars reappeared, structures stabilized, and the chamber returned to normal. Elias Kane was still standing, calm, steady, and smiling. The council observed silently, their expressions a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. Sarathis stepped closer, her metallic skin glinting under the chamber lights. "You endured it," she said quietly, her voice betraying a trace of awe. "No one has ever faced that trial and remained unbroken. Why are you not afraid?" Elias met her gaze directly. "I am human," he said simply. "Fear is natural, but surrender is a choice. We survive by facing challenges, by learning from them, and by standing together. That is the strength of humanity." Sarathis tilted her head, considering his words. She could sense the truth in them, though it challenged everything she had believed. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, and dominated by emotion. Yet this one had faced an ordeal designed to destroy the mind, and he had not only survived but emerged stronger. She felt an unfamiliar respect, the kind that unsettled her and demanded reconsideration of her assumptions. The council reconvened, discussing the results in their alien languages. Many admitted, reluctantly, that human endurance and reasoning were remarkable. Elias had proven that humans could face trials that would break other species, not by dominating, but by enduring. Voreth, the head of the council, addressed him. "Humanity has survived its third trial," Voreth said. "You have faced illusions, fears, and the limits of the mind, and you have endured. This demonstrates qualities our council has not anticipated: resilience, patience, and strength born from endurance rather than fear. Humanity is no longer to be dismissed." Elias nodded, his calm smile unwavering. "Thank you. We continue to learn and adapt, just as every species must to survive." As the council deliberated, Sarathis remained behind. She thought about the first time she had confronted him, the boldness of his gaze, the quiet strength behind his smile. She realized that humanity's power was unlike any other species she had encountered. It was subtle, not aggressive, persistent, not loud, courageous, not arrogant. And that realization, she knew, would shape how she viewed humans forever. For Elias Kane, the trial had been more than a test of survival. It had been an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's essence: courage in the face of fear, endurance against impossible odds, and the ability to adapt without surrendering principles. He understood that the council would continue to challenge humanity, but he also knew that every trial, every obstacle, was a chance to prove what humans were capable of. The chamber quieted as he left the test room, walking with calm assurance. Aliens who had doubted him stared, some in disbelief, others with newfound respect. Sarathis watched silently, her thoughts turning over the implications of what she had seen. Humanity was more than a species. It was a force shaped by resilience, intelligence, and unyielding courage. And in that, Elias Kane had become a symbol, a reminder that humans were not to be underestimated, no matter their size or history. The third trial had ended, but for Elias and humanity, it was only the beginning. The galaxy had begun to notice, and with each challenge, each demonstration of courage, humanity's place among the stars became more secure. Elias knew that the trials ahead would be harder, that fear and doubt would test him again. But he also knew that humanity's strength was enduring, adaptable, and courageous. And that knowledge, more than anything else, was the true victory. The fourth trial was unlike any previous challenge. Elias Kane had survived the council's simulations, navigated complex negotiations, and faced the void of fear and illusion. Yet this trial would test not only his courage but the very essence of humanity: moral judgment, strategic thinking, and the ability to balance strength with compassion. The chamber was transformed again, this time into a vast orbital station suspended above a dying planet. Smoke spiraled from fractured cities, oceans boiled in patches, and massive storms swept across the land. The planet was a disaster in motion, and the council expected Elias to fail, to show panic or rash decision-making. Elias stepped forward, his calm smile steady as he surveyed the scene. From the viewing deck, the scope of the crisis was clear. He could see millions of lives at stake, entire ecosystems collapsing, and multiple intelligent species struggling for survival. Many delegates had assumed that humans would crumble under the enormity of the challenge. Yet Elias understood that humanity had endured far worse on Earth. Humanity had survived wars, famines, and natural disasters that had claimed countless lives. He had learned that panic was a luxury, and that careful observation and decisive action were the true measures of strength. The council began issuing instructions. Humanity, Vorath's voice boomed, echoing through the chamber, you must prioritize. Choose which regions to save first. You have limited resources, limited time. Lives will be lost. Show us your judgment. Elias listened carefully. He knew that any decision would have consequences, but he also understood that indecision would be catastrophic. He focused on the principle that humanity's strength lay in cooperation, strategy, and empathy. He began organizing rescue teams, directing energy shields to stabilize critical cities, and deploying drones to assist in evacuation efforts. He coordinated with alien delegates, some reluctant, some skeptical, to form alliances that maximized efficiency. Where other species might have acted out of fear or favoritism, Elias acted with reason, weighing the greatest good for the greatest number. The council observed silently, many expecting human error. Yet Elias' approach was methodical. He divided the planet into sectors, assigning tasks based on the strengths of the species present. He ensured that even the smallest communities received attention, refusing to sacrifice some for the benefit of others. This was unfamiliar to the council. Most species prioritized power, efficiency, or self-interest over compassion. Humanity's approach was different, guided by the principle that no life was insignificant. The first major obstacle arose when a massive storm threatened to destroy an entire coastal region. Sensors detected hundreds of ships trapped at sea, unable to escape. Delegates urged him to focus on cities instead, arguing that ships were expendable. Elias paused, considering the implications. No life is expendable, he said firmly. We will redirect resources. We will save as many as we can, not because it is easy, but because it is right. He coordinated drones, emergency shelters, and temporary force fields. It took hours, but the operation succeeded. Thousands of lives were saved. The council murmured among themselves, some in surprise, others in disbelief. They had expected humans to act selfishly or prioritize efficiency over life. Elias' decisions demonstrated something the council had not anticipated. Humanity valued life, even at the cost of personal or species advantage. Next came a crisis in a mountainous region where multiple intelligent species were trapped under collapsing terrain. Resources were limited, and the council expected him to choose a single species to save first. Elias observed carefully, analyzing the terrain, the capabilities of each species, and the potential for coordinated rescue. Instead of choosing one, he devised a plan that allowed all species to be rescued simultaneously, coordinating alien technology and human strategy. It was a solution that required patience, foresight, and clear communication. Some delegates were stunned. Impossible, whispered one. No species could manage such coordination under pressure. Elias smiled calmly. Impossible is only a word, he said softly. We focus on solutions, not limitations. As the trial continued, the planet's disasters intensified. Volcanoes erupted, storms collided, and tectonic activity threatened entire regions simultaneously. Delegates panicked, some withdrawing from the challenge, others shouting contradictory orders. Elias remained calm, assessing each problem systematically, prioritizing critical areas and delegating tasks efficiently. His mind worked like a machine, but one guided by empathy. Every life mattered, and every action had purpose. Sarathis observed from the chamber's edge, her metallic form reflecting the chaos below. She had expected humans to falter under such pressure, but Elias was thriving. Not through brute strength or intimidation, but through patience, intelligence, and compassion. Her respect for him had grown steadily with each trial, but now she realized that humanity's true power was not only in endurance or courage, it was in moral clarity, the ability to act rightly even when faced with impossible choices. The final challenge of the trial was subtle but profound. A group of intelligent alien beings had been isolated by collapsing infrastructure. They were capable of self-rescue, but required guidance to coordinate effectively. Ilias had to decide whether to risk sending limited human and alien resources to assist them or conserve resources for more immediate threats. Many delegates urged him to abandon the group, considering it a waste. Ilias considered the situation carefully. He understood that leaving them would contradict humanity's principles. He chose to help. Through careful coordination and clever use of technology, the group was guided to safety. The council watched in silent astonishment. By choosing compassion over convenience, humanity had demonstrated a strength that was intangible yet undeniable. A strength no simulation could replicate, no brute force could match. After the trial ended, the orbital station returned to its original chamber state. Delegates looked at Ilias with a mixture of disbelief, respect, and cautious admiration. They had expected a species driven by fear, weakness, and short-term thinking. Instead, they had witnessed intelligence, courage, empathy, and strategic brilliance. Humanity had survived not by domination, but by understanding, planning, and moral conviction. Vorath spoke again, his voice reverberating through the chamber. Humanity has survived the fourth trial. You have faced disasters, impossible decisions, and moral dilemmas, and you have prevailed. Your actions demonstrate qualities we have not seen in other species: courage guided by compassion, strategy guided by principle. The Council acknowledges your achievements. Ilias nodded, his smile unwavering. Thank you. We continue to learn and adapt, and we act guided by what is right, not merely what is easy. Sarathis stepped forward, her expression unreadable but her eyes bright with recognition. You are unlike any species I have known, she said. You do not yield to fear, you do not compromise your principles, and yet you survive where others fail. Your species is remarkable. Ilias inclined his head politely. We have endured countless challenges on our homeworld, and we continue to do so. Our strength is not in domination, but in perseverance, cooperation, and understanding. That is what defines humanity. The council murmured among themselves. Aliens who had doubted humans began to see them in a new light. Humanity was no longer just a minor species, potentially dangerous but ultimately weak. Humanity was a force shaped by courage, intelligence, empathy, and moral conviction. Each trial had revealed a layer of their strength, and this one, the moral and strategic trial, had shown that humans could act rightly even when faced with impossible choices. Sarathis lingered behind, her thoughts turning over the events of the trial. Ilias had faced disasters that would have broken many other species. He had made choices that were difficult, even when shortcuts and efficiency were available, and he had done so with a calm, steady smile that belied the enormity of the challenge. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that humans were more than resilient. They were extraordinary in ways her species could not yet fully understand. Ilias Kane walked through the chamber with quiet confidence. He had survived 4 trials, each designed to test the limits of humanity, each meant to break his spirit or reveal weakness. Yet he had proven that human strength was not just physical or intellectual. It was moral, strategic, and deeply rooted in empathy. Humanity's place in the galaxy was not granted by force, but earned through courage, wisdom, and integrity. The Council had begun to change its perception of humans. Delegates whispered cautiously, acknowledging that humanity was capable of feats no other species had achieved under pressure. Where fear and intimidation had once ruled interactions with humans, now there was curiosity, respect, and even admiration. Ilias had not only survived the trial, he had demonstrated the essence of what made his species extraordinary. As the chamber quieted, Sarathis approached him once more. Her eyes reflected both the lights of the chamber and the chaos she had witnessed. You have shown us something no species has ever shown before, she said softly. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans act with courage and compassion where others fail. I understand now why your species is so formidable. Ilias smiled, calm and steady. Strength is not always about power, he said. It is about endurance, empathy, and the courage to act rightly. Humanity has survived and will continue to survive because we do not abandon these principles. For the first time, Sarathis felt a shift in her perception, a quiet respect that no command or training could instill. She had seen the human gaze, the human smile, and the human heart. And she knew that humanity's journey among the stars was only beginning. but it was already remarkable. The fourth trial had ended, leaving humanity standing taller in the eyes of the council. Elias Kane had proven that humans could face impossible disasters, moral dilemmas, and strategic challenges without faltering. He had shown the galaxy that humanity's strength was not in domination or fear, but in endurance, compassion, and intelligence. And for Elias, it was a reminder that every challenge ahead was an opportunity to demonstrate the extraordinary nature of his species. The fifth trial was the final one, and the Council intended it to be the most difficult yet. It was not a test of survival, negotiation, or strategy alone. This time, it was a test of vision, whether humanity could demonstrate that it belonged not merely as a survivor, but as a leader and mediator in the galaxy. The chamber transformed once more, this time into a panoramic view of the stars. Entire civilizations shimmered below, their lights flickering like scattered gems. Planets teetered on the edge of conflict, civilizations faced starvation, and ecosystems struggled under environmental collapse. Elias Kane stood at the center, calm and poised as always. He looked at the vast galaxy before him, understanding that this trial was about more than the immediate threats. It was about humanity's ability to shape the future. Delegates had expected him to falter under the weight of responsibility, to panic at the enormity of choice. Yet Elias' smile remained, serene and confident. He had survived 4 trials, and now the 5th demanded vision, wisdom, and courage combined. Vorath, the head of the council, spoke first. "Humanity," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you have demonstrated endurance, intelligence, and empathy. But can you show foresight? Can you act in a way that benefits not only your species, but the galaxy as a whole? Your final trial begins now." Immediately, the chamber shifted again. Holographic projections appeared around Elias, each depicting a civilization in crisis. Some were in the middle of war, others were facing famine or environmental collapse. Entire systems were on the brink of chaos. The council expected Elias to prioritize selfishly, focusing only on humans or making decisions that would gain favor for Earth while ignoring others. But Elias had learned over the course of these trials that humanity's strength was not self-interest, it was collaboration. He began by analyzing the situations. He observed patterns in the conflicts, understood the causes of crises, and identified potential solutions. He did not act impulsively. He listened first, considering the perspectives of all species involved. He reached out to delegates of each system, some skeptical, some openly hostile, and spoke with patience and clarity. "We can find solutions that benefit everyone," he said. "It will not be easy, and some compromise is necessary, but every life and every civilization matters. Cooperation is our greatest strength." The council watched in silence. Many delegates had expected human short-sightedness or arrogance, but Elias demonstrated vision, logic, and empathy in equal measure. He coordinated resources from planets with surpluses, directed aid to those in need, and proposed alliances between rival species. His plan was not perfect. No solution could erase all suffering, but it was fair, deliberate, and achievable. The first test of his plan involved a planet on the edge of civil war. 2 factions had long-standing grudges, each threatening the survival of the other. Delegates whispered that it was impossible for a human to mediate such deeply rooted conflict. Elias approached the leaders of both factions, speaking not as a judge, but as a mediator. He acknowledged their grievances, listened to their fears, and offered compromises that preserved the dignity and safety of both sides. Slowly, the factions began to respond, cautiously at first, then with tentative cooperation. Next, Elias addressed a neighboring system threatened by famine. Resources were scarce, and some delegates suggested rationing based on power or influence. Elias refused. He coordinated a system-wide effort to share resources equitably, using human ingenuity to transport supplies efficiently. He encouraged local solutions, teaching communities to grow their own food and manage resources sustainably. The council watched, amazed at his ability to combine practical strategy with moral clarity. As the trial progressed, the final challenge became more subtle. Elias was presented with a council decision. A neighboring civilization had violated interstellar law by invading another planet. The council expected him to act aggressively, to condemn the violators, and perhaps take advantage of the situation to elevate humanity's status. Instead, Elias considered the broader consequences. He proposed diplomacy, accountability, and restitution. The invading species would acknowledge wrongdoing and provide aid to the affected planet, but humanity would not exploit the situation for gain. This approach astonished the Council. Aliens were accustomed to punishment, dominance, and retribution. Elias' solution demonstrated that humans could navigate complex ethical challenges without resorting to aggression. He balanced justice with compassion, fairness with strategic foresight. Humanity was not only surviving in the galaxy, it was showing how to thrive without sacrificing principles. Sarathis, who had observed every trial, stepped forward as the chamber quieted. Her metallic skin reflected the soft light of the holographic galaxy. "Human," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight, "you have shown endurance, intelligence, compassion, and foresight. No other species could have survived these trials without faltering. Yet you have not only survived, you have demonstrated what it means to be extraordinary." Elias inclined his head. "We act as humans have always acted," he replied. "We endure, we adapt, and we strive to do what is right. Strength is not only survival, but the courage to act with empathy, intelligence, and vision." The Council deliberated as alien species murmured among themselves. Aliens who had doubted humanity now whispered words of respect and curiosity. Some spoke openly of admiration. The trials had been designed to expose weakness, yet humanity had revealed strength in ways the Council had not anticipated. Courage, intelligence, empathy, and strategic vision combined to create a species capable of standing among the galaxy's greatest. Finally, Vorath addressed the chamber. "Humanity has completed the fifth and final trial. Your species has demonstrated qualities beyond expectation: courage in the face of fear, intelligence under pressure, empathy in decision-making, and foresight in planning. The Council recognizes humanity as a valued participant in interstellar affairs. You are no longer merely survivors. You are leaders, mediators, and exemplars of what it means to endure and thrive." A murmur of astonishment swept through the chamber. Aliens had expected humans to be weak, emotional, and incapable of strategic thinking. Yet Elias had shown them otherwise. He had not relied on weapons, intimidation, or aggression. He had relied on endurance, cooperation, moral clarity, and intelligence. Humanity's strength had been demonstrated not in conquest, but in example. Sarathis approached Elias one final time, her expression unreadable but her eyes reflecting the galaxy's light. "You have changed how we see your species," she said quietly. "I do not yet fully understand it, but I know this. Humans are remarkable. You survive, you adapt, and you inspire. That is power unlike any other." Elias smiled, calm and steady. "Thank you," he replied. "We do not seek to dominate, only to endure, to learn, and to do what is right. That is how humanity thrives." The chamber was silent for a moment, the weight of history settling over the Council. Humanity had not only survived trials designed to test every aspect of strength and intelligence, it had redefined what strength meant in the eyes of the galaxy. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Power was not domination, but understanding and cooperation. Humanity had proven that resilience, morality, and vision were as formidable as any weapon. As Elias left the chamber, delegates from multiple species approached him. Some offered respect, others cautious alliances, and some sought guidance. The human envoy had become more than a representative of Earth. He was a symbol of humanity itself, a species that could endure, adapt, and rise to meet challenges greater than itself. Outside the council chamber, the stars stretched infinitely, each one a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy and the challenges yet to come. Elias looked toward them with calm determination. Humanity's trials were complete, but the journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new crises, and new opportunities. Yet Elias knew that humanity was ready. With courage, intelligence, empathy, and vision, humans could face whatever the galaxy would bring. Sarathis walked alongside him as the chamber emptied. "I underestimated your species," she admitted. "Not because you lack strength, but because your strength is unlike anything I have known. Humans endure, adapt, and inspire. That is extraordinary." Elias nodded. "It is our nature. We do not seek to conquer through fear, but to rise through understanding. That is what makes humanity capable of facing the stars." The council, once skeptical and doubtful, had been transformed. Humanity was no longer an unknown or insignificant species. It was respected, valued, and recognized for its unique combination of courage, intelligence, empathy, and vision. Elias Kane had not only survived 5 trials designed to test every aspect of humanity, he had elevated his species in the eyes of the galaxy. And as he stepped into the observation hall, gazing out at the endless expanse of stars, Elias smiled. The journey had been long, the trials difficult, but humanity had proven itself. Not through weapons, not through domination, but through courage, understanding, and the quiet power of enduring principles. The galaxy had begun to notice. Humanity was no longer just a minor species. It was a force of resilience, intelligence, and moral clarity. Elias Kane had shown the Council what it meant to be human, and in that, he had ensured that humanity's place among the stars would be secure, not through fear, but through the enduring strength of the human spirit. The trials were over, but the journey of humanity had only just begun. Across countless stars, alien civilizations would remember this day, the day a human dared to smile, dared to act rightly, and dared to show that true strength comes not from domination, but from courage, empathy, and enduring hope. Elias turned toward Sarathis one last time. "The galaxy is vast," he said, "but humanity is ready." She nodded, her metallic skin reflecting the starlight. "So it seems," she replied, "and perhaps that is the future we have been waiting for." Together they looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had not only survived the trials, it had changed the perception of the galaxy forever. The human race had earned its place, not as conquerors, but as exemplars of courage, resilience, and hope. And the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter for it.